Hi, all, freeze cracked here. Hey, I thought I would beat on a rock here, and the reason I thought I'd video this, I'm just going to do the initial reduction video of it. This is one of those things. It's one of those rocks you probably shouldn't buy, but well, we have about 2.5 inches or something of square edge all the way along it where a machine hit it, and it's not very wide, and there's lots of little seams in there that probably don't go deep. Cortex and big rounded on the back. Just sort of difficult to deal with. You can't really hit from the ends well because it's so long that you'd be hitting 6 or 8 inch flakes trying to meet in the middle or whatever. So anyway, we're gonna mess with it. I've hammered my largest boppers in to try and do things. Okay, so now I'm holding all the way out on the end and supporting on my leg and just starting with a downward oblique backward kind of thing to take that end off. One of the goals here, obviously with a real long piece like this, is not to lose length. Maybe try and do something cool with a length. So you try not to get into that length too much. The other thing is, when you scale up, you want to braid more and get efficient, because you're taking bigger flakes. I'm still seeing, almost everybody that shows me a point or whatever, I'm still seeing some signs of platform failure. Man, when you hit along edges, they run. So, got to adjust. That went into concavity and rolled out. Didn't want it to go any further for sure. So that's chattering up in there. Anyway, so on failed platforms, so I'm just barely catching above the cortex. It would be cool on a lot of the rock. It has like stripes in it near the edge. It'd be cool to save that. But if you're going to do that, you really would like to saw the thing right down the middle and work up close to the cortex, and you can get some cool differences in color and things from the usual. So anyway, failed platforms. There's different ways to approach the stuff. I don't want, I've made these comments about abrading. I don't want to think that for everybody the solution is to abrade like a monster. Some of the ammo nappers probably laugh at me over that. Because it probably was not the way that anybody... See, that's failed platform. Right there. You might say, oh my gosh, he hit a wrong angle or whatever. Nope. Totally a failed platform. And I was hitting right at the top of the cortex, and I didn't have this edge strong enough and abraded enough. So I just failed. When it fails, it kicks up. Classic. And you can say, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. You can fix that. Yeah, I can fix that at this stage of the game. But you don't want to get in the habit of doing that. That was a mistake, in case you're wondering. I haven't napped this morning. I just started in kind of cold. I really shouldn't be going all the way down like this. You see how that kicked up? It's kind of thin on it. I really shouldn't be going all the way down like this. I should start from the other end and come back and meet it, because you always want to get weight off the ends first. So we'll go on this end. See how I'm holding the far end? Kind of leaning it on my leg. I'm actually going to go ahead and hit above that again, because that's a little bit low, so sort of below the center line of my point. But I'm scraping off some of this to make it thinner, so it'll probably let go. There's no real solution to knowing what you can get away with without practicing a bunch. I mean, you can watch me and you can understand concepts. Turning that up without thickening it too much. See, if the center line's right there, then I turn it up and try and keep as much of the length as possible. But back on that platform failing thing. It's a function of a number of things. The edge is stronger if you stand it up straight. So if you overly turn an edge down, you're hitting it at a different angle on it, it doesn't have as much strength. If it's thin and it's tapered real thin, it doesn't have much strength. The thicker edge has more strength. So it isn't just the abrading. A lot of people have a lot of downward component in their angle. They're not driving in very much. Well, they're going to have more problems because they're putting lateral force. They're putting lip force on it, kind of. And it tends to break more. So there's different ways to address it. You can address it with how you set your platform up. You can address it with how tapered or thin your edges are that you work off of, how straight outward they are, how the angles you hit, and then the abrading. The simplest thing to do is to thicken them and abrade more. But then you want to not do all that at the end. You don't want to, have your final set be off a super thick edges, because it won't look good. I mean, it won't be right. It won't be real sharp. This is kind of a mess. That was a long flake. It was kind of a mess. The other thing is, I'm not doing that failed. I'm not doing much of a job of conserving stone at all. Because of the shape of this thing, I didn't set up anything to take off any big flat flakes or spall anything or do any good with anything. Alright, so you can see the concepts here. Hitting above the edge, still crushing it a little. Crushing and kicking. So there's a ugly zigzag. And see, this is what I'm talking about. You got a big, heavy rock. Haven't reduced thickness at all, so you got to be doing a bunch of that stuff soon. and you have a thin rolled edge in a lot of places. This does not work. You're going to have to strengthen that and stiffen that to hit on it, and you got to do it quite a bit. So like this is rolled this way, so in order to hit back, you know, the platform's over here, so you'd want to hit across here, but it's rolled a little bit this way. So you need to first abrade downward here to unroll it, and then flip it and abrade and get it and lower it again, and then let me show you. Bring it up first to get the roll off of it a little bit, which I didn't do it very much. But so then you lower it again, and you braid at the angle you're going to be hitting. And this one comes back this way. And if you really want to do it right, you go with a finer abrader at the end, a cross grind, to take some of those vertical scratches out. Vertical scratches are a bad thing. And then with the concept of starting from the end, we're going to hit this first, and then that, and then that. Oops, dang. Put it on the pad. You got to do some good, you know. Figure it out. Figure out. Don't just keep getting. Don't just keep getting narrower and narrower without thinning. You got to do some good at some point. Failed. See that? Okay. I hit just as hard as I did for the other ones. The flake is, number one, it's split, which is a function of the smoothness of this, basically. Or it could have been a vertical crack that I didn't get out, a vertical scratch that I didn't get out of the thing. But probably it just was too thin. I didn't get it stiffened enough. When you have a flake, you know, if you got homogeneous material and you have a flake that's like a third of what your other flakes are, guess what? Your edge failed. If all the other variables didn't change, then your edge failed. Get the vertical scratches out. So I'm going to hit it right here. There's a little bit of a concavity, kind of a problem. Going to hit downward a little more and let the pad do its work. Then when you do this, you're making vertical scratches. That weakens your platform. So it's the cross grind after that. You know, you move your platform and then you got a cross grind. Hit inward a bunch, make that thing do some thinning. All right, so anyway, 13 minutes. On these square edges, if there's a little bit of flare at the bottom, or if there's a little bit of angle, you might be able to take your sharp edge off it a little bit, and you might be able to score up laterally, score up the surface, and hit almost straight down on it and barely catch it, but don't catch it at the very edge, catch it a little above the edge, and hope that your bopper is sticky enough to take that flake. And to make the odds of it working even better, you hold underneath it, because what you don't want it to do is hinge down and kick up, because then you're just going to create a hinge right in here. It'll be, and that happens most of the time with a square edge. Hitting on square edge is dangerous. But I'm going to take it, I'm going to hit right above the square edge right here and see what happens. So that's a benefit. I'm going to do another one right there. Don't try and do too much. I guess I got mowers now. Getting big bulbs, big concavities. Most of the force is because of the angle. Most of the force is kicking up into the thing and blowing out bigger bulbs than usual on the other flake. Plus this is soft material, so gotta be careful with it. Alright, since they're mowing, I'm gonna go ahead and stop, but you get the idea. We'll go ahead and zigzag this some more. Work up to the center line. Try and get your little nub on it. Have patience, be careful. Anyway, this is real ugly, but believe it or not, it'll be okay. I'm just going to keep zigzagging down here and start shooting across here and get aggressive with it. Once you get your square edges off stuff, set stuff up carefully and be aggressive. Maybe I'll do some more another time, but for right now, the mowing is a problem. Bye. So anyway, you know, then I started hitting all the way across the thing to try and get some of that thickness gone. And I'm just showing you some of the weird angled flakes and stuff, but just going as far as I can and losing thickness. You just really need to get it all skinned. This is not a great video. The initial reduction had a lot of failing platforms, a lot of issues, but just making up for it here a little bit. This was a problem. I didn't want to turn the edge too much on this right-hand side for the problem, so I set it up and went all the way from the left-hand side across right there to take off problems because I didn't want to turn and lose width. This is what I ended up doing, and I left it at this. I didn't finish that night because it started losing light, but the flaking is all weird and different because I was using pressure to sink it because I needed to have it thickness gone.